What famous person has done something incredibly heinous, but has often been overlooked? Notre Dame football coach Brian Kelly. Kelly insisted on having student videographers record practices. Back in October of 2010, the region was experiencing a very bad windstorm, 50 miles per hour gusts, and Kelly hated to move practice inside, so once rain/lightning was over, he moved it back outside, despite the high winds. The videographers had to climb into scissor lifts and ascend up to 40 feet high in this weather. As you can guess, the wind eventually blew over one of the lifts, sending it crashing down to a nearby street and killing the videographer, 20-year-old Declan Sullivan. Just before the accident, Sullivan tweeted out some heartbreaking message expressing his fear over the situation. The team's practice continued for 25 minutes after the scissors lift fell over. Despite the university being determined to be at fault for Sullivan's death, Kelly was never really held to account for his reckless decision to hold practice outside in horrendous weather and to continue to have the videographers up on unstable lifts. It should have ended his coaching tenure at the school that year. But sports money and power doesn't abide by such silly notions of responsibility. During the filming of the Twilight Zone movie, John Landis demanded a scene be shot in the middle of the night and beyond the amount of time that child actors are allowed to work, paid off their parents in cash from his own pocket. During the scene, there were big pyro effects and a helicopter pilot hovering dangerously low. The pilot was trying to keep safe, but Landis kept telling him to get lower. Pyroblast damaged the tail rotor of the helicopter, which lost control and crashed, decapitating an actor and one of the children. The second child was crushed to death. Edit. My mistake. The passengers in the helicopters were not killed. Paid off their parents in cash from his own pocket. During the scene, there were big pyro effects and a helicopter pilot hovering dangerously low. The pilot was trying to keep safe, but Landis kept telling him to get lower. Pyroblast damaged the tail rotor of the helicopter, which lost control and crashed, decapitating an actor and one of the children. The second child was crushed to death. Edit. My mistake. The passengers in the helicopters were not killed. Chris Bennett is more known for the circumstances of his death. Long story short, he's a wrestler, received too much chair shots to the head in his career, developed the brain of an 80-year-old man at barely 40, had a breakdown and killed his wife, his son, and then himself. Once they learned this, WWE tried to basically bury him and act like he never existed, despite the fact that he was an enormous main eventer back then. Everyone is aware of this, and it's often debated whether Bennett is a victim or not. But then you have Jimmy Snuka over there, who killed his girlfriend in cold blood for seemingly no reasons, and this motherfucker is in the Hall of Fame, and no one seems to care. Most Americans probably won't know the name, Jimmy Savile, but what he got away with for decades is absolutely awful. Countless sexual assaults against people, mostly children, all the way up to the elderly. Worse than that, his behavior was covered up by elements within BBC as he was employed by them. He's dead now, but he got away with it his whole life, likely thousands of victims. John Stamos admitted in Jane magazine to tricking a girl into having sex with his friend. He bragged that he started making out with this girl in a dark room, got up to brush his teeth, and then let his friend go in and have sex with her. No one mentions it. Some dirtbags just get a pass, I guess. Allison Mack, of Smallville fame, was a member of the NXIVM cult, and was personally responsible for human trafficking, sexual assault, branding, and literally making other women sexual slaves of the guru. She's currently under house arrest, awaiting sentencing. Klaus Kinski was a violent lunatic who also raped his own daughter. The number of professional athletes who have raped/abused people and animals/committed heinous crimes with impunity is too long to list. When I was training in Aikido in the 90s, the head of our style was Shihan Fumoyo Toyota. He would come to do seminars like twice a year, and we would all go out to eat, and he would tell us stories. Well, Shihan was the person that Siegel got his first stand from. Shihan told us he was in Chicago to film his first movie. He took Shihan out for dinner. We were told Siegel was so full of himself that Shihan considered him an asshole. It takes a special kind of person to make an ass of yourself in front of your sensei. Ian Watkins, lead singer of Lost Prophets, currently serving lots and lots of times at Her Majesty's pleasure for assorted child sex offenses, including trying to arrange something so despicable that I can't type the words. I used to love their music. Now I just feel sick when I think about it. In the early 90s, Tom and Rosenbar Arnold financed a large-scale meth operation in the southeast Iowa that ran through Tom's brother-in-law's horse breeding operation. This one doesn't get a lot of publicity, but to the locals, it's just a known fact. Edit. Didn't expect this to blow up. Some background information. At the height of their celebrity, Tom and Roseanne spent nearly every weekend in Wapello County, Iowa, with his brother-in-law Floyd, who was sentenced to 50-plus years in federal prison for meth. Tom and Roseanne, at the time of the bust, were building a mansion in Eldon, Iowa. Eldon, fucking Iowa. Anyone from that area knows the only thing in Eldon is and was meth. My personal sources on this are known associates that did various amounts of time from the bust at Floyd's ranch, his neighbors, and a litany of people who partied with the group in the early 90s. It's assumed by most of those that Tom and Roseanne are the unnamed informants in Floyd's deposition. They stopped building the mansion and just left it abandoned at the time. Roseanne has never been back. Salman Khan, the Indian actor, not the Khan Academy gentleman, killed one person and injured 4 other homeless people sleeping on the streets after his car crashed into them. He also has been accused for poaching black bucks, chankra, etc. In addition to this, he has also harassed a well-known actress after they broke up. Every time a lower court convicts him, he appeals to a higher court, granting him a bail. Fuck him. Fuck that bastard. Melissa Benoist, first husband, almost blinded her. So she's been doing the Supergirl TV show for a while now, but a few years back, news came out that she had hurt her eye. She said she tripped or something, had hurt herself at home. Nope. Her first husband threw his phone at her in a fit of rage, hit her in the eye, and she almost lost her sight. Glad she left that psycho. You always hear about Pancho Villa, but hardly ever about his right-hand man, Rodolfo Fierro. Fierro loved to kill. He would kill at the first chance and would do so in a casual manner. One time, he and another one of his henchmen were arguing so as to which direction a man falls when he is shot and killed. They argued, Fierro that the man would fall face first, the henchman that he would fall backwards, until all of a sudden, Fierro took out his gun and fatally shot a passerby in broad daylight. The man fell face first, and Fierro won that argument. Matthew Broderick killed 2 people in a reckless driving accident and only paid like $200 to get out of it. William Holden killed a man while drunk driving in 1966, and he got away with an 8-month suspended sentence. But one could say that karma eventually caught up with him. 15 years later, he fell in his apartment and hit his head while drunk. Due to his state, he didn't realize how serious his wound was, didn't call help, and bled to death. Mark Wahlberg was one of the few people in history to violate a civil rights injunction. A civil rights injunction is basically a court ordering telling someone to stop committing hate crimes. Mark Wahlberg was originally busted as a 15-year-old for attacking 4th graders for being black. 2 years later, he robbed and beat a Vietnamese man for being Asian, then beat another man for also being Asian. One of his victims was permanently injured. Then he became Marky Mark. How has nobody said Sean Penn? He hit Madonna over the head with a baseball bat when they were together, broke into her/their home when they were on the outs, tied her to a chair with cable, cut off her hair, and beat her. Also left her there for like 9 hours, apparently, and came back to continue. Then he forced her to perform sex acts on him. She managed to get away at some point and get to the cops, but she didn't end up pressing charges. Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken were out on a boat with Natalie Wood when she went overboard, not knowing how to swim. She had suspicious scrapes and bruises, and stories were not adding up. Also, there's the Roman Polanski thing. Roman Polanski drugged and raped a child, then fled America rather than serve his sentence. Yet, Hollywood folks still work with this child rapist and fugitive from justice. France won't extradite him, and people actually say he should be forgiven and allowed back from exile. No, he should be castrated with a rusty knife and left without any medical treatment. Jenny McCarthy flaming the fire of the anti-vaccine movement in 2007. I never heard of the term or movement, and the first time I did, her name was attached. And now all these Karens feel emboldened to endanger the lives of their children and the people around them. Michael Fassbender apparently used to beat the shit out of his ex-girlfriend. She said he was a raging alcoholic and beat her at least on one occasion in public. There was one instance where an ex had talked to her at a restaurant while she was with Fassbender, and on the drive home, he was shouting at her, etc. She got out of the car to go and take the keys out of the ignition, and he basically stepped on the gas and dragged her along the street. It caused internal bleeding, a busted ovarian cyst, and some other injuries. On another occasion, he threw her over a chair after an argument and broke her nose. She asked to be compensated for her medical bills from the injuries caused by the abuse, and that's it. She didn't want the case to be prolonged. He never spoke about it. I think he settled it in private. As a result, it seems most people have never heard about it. Another weird thing that I heard that may not be true is that because it happened before he was properly famous, Weinstein and co. helped keep it quiet when the story resurfaced around the time Inglourious Basterds was coming out. But yeah, it's a horrendous story, and I hope she's doing okay. Ann Perry, Juliet Holm, was convicted for murdering her friend's mother, but because of her privileged background, she got off after 5 years and now lives a normal life, enjoying success as an author. Did not know she was Juliet Holm, but I know of the case. Peter Jackson's film, Heavenly Creatures, is about the murder that took place in New Zealand in 1954. She was 15 at the time, which has more to do with why she didn't serve more time. Both girls served the same amount of time. Pauline, her friend, did not come from wealth or privilege. Clint Eastwood pretty much destroyed the career of his ex Sandra Locke. After they split up, he had her stuff thrown out of their home, changed the locks, and posted security guards to keep her out. She sued, and as part of a settlement, if she dropped the suit, he convinced a studio to contract her for a multi-film deal, with her acting as a producer and director. Except the whole deal was a sham, and she never got any of her projects made. Mike Tyson raped a girl in '91. Mark Wahlberg shouted racist comments, while also throwing rocks at a group of 4th grade black children. Kiefer Sutherland has at least a few DUIs under his belt. Kevin Costner tried to build a casino on Sioux land after starring in Dances with Wolves. Kobe Bryant raped a 19-year-old girl in 2003. When the girl stepped forward, his lawyer said her name in open court 6 times during one hearing, despite the fact that the girl was meant to remain anonymous, then tried to make her out to be a harlot that slept around. When the girl finally settled, after media camped out at her parents' home for days, everyone took that as proof she never was assaulted. Then he died, and everyone painted him as some sort of saint. It bothered me. I was on a plane once with Will Wheaton, and he just sat there with his headphones on watching a movie. He didn't try to entertain all the other passengers with his witty banter and regale us with stories from Star Trek. Nothing. Just sat there in silence and politely stood up when the lady on the window seat needed to go to the bathroom. A bit late to the party, but Anthony Kiedis, he committed statutory rape. He had sex with a 14-year-old girl when he was in his early 20s. Also, he was in a relationship with an 18-year-old girl when he was like 50-something. I found it out literally from his Wikipedia page, and I haven't seen this before. Maybe because I'm way too young, and when the case was relevant, I wasn't even born. But still, I think it's fairly unknown. I know we're supposed to hate TikTok, but there's a 20-year-old TikTok star that was sexting a 15-year-old girl, even after finding out she was 15. He has like 21 or 22 million followers, and people only talk about what he did as a joke. It's honestly stupid. Matthew Broderick killed a family in a car crash. It wasn't an accident either. Happened in Ireland, where people drive on the left side, and he was belligerent and insistent on being allowed to drive despite the differences. When the family died, he skipped out on the murder charge and got a lesser one because #rich, and eventually offered to meet the family as condolence, but skipped out on that too. To this day, he has done nothing as restitution for his actions. The fact that Victor Salva was actually able to make Jeepers Creepers 3 after he was charged with child sexual abuse and child pornography is disgusting. I'm surprised Netflix has that film available. I would have hoped that people would have taken more of a stance against this man working in the industry again. Thomas Jefferson, who was the first Secretary of State, second Vice President, and third President of the USA, kept hundreds of slaves and raped 14-year-old slave Sally Hemings for several decades, giving birth to his 6 children, which then also became his slaves. To further complicate matters, Sally Hemings was a half-sister to Jefferson's late wife, the product of a relationship between Jefferson's father-in-law and one of his slaves. Brandy killed a 38-year-old woman in a car accident, wasn't charged but settled out of court with the family. Edit to add, I find it ironic that so many people are saying this incident, one in which someone innocent lost their life due to the careless act of a celebrity, is being overlooked just because the celebrity was remorseful over it. Someone losing their life is still a heinous, defined as a person or wrongful act situation, especially when she literally paid out money in a wrongful, heinous death suit. Key example of people overlooking a celebrity's heinous act. Accident or not, the victim in this is still not Brandy. It's the victim's children that were also in the vehicle but lived, and other families she left behind. John Lennon was a wife beater. Matthew Broderick killed 2 people in a car accident. Mark Wahlberg attacked 2 Vietnamese men and called them racial slurs. Dr. Dre assaulted a woman. Tim Allen got caught trafficking cocaine and ratted out his friends. Ray Lewis straight up murdered a guy, 2 actually, and got away with it. Not accidentally or drunkenly killed someone with his car. He and his posse got in an altercation that resulted in 2 deaths. He got off on obstruction of justice charges.